I am Amy Stummy, and I am the coach at the Maryland Association of CPAs and BLI. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you Rachel Druckenmiller, SIG's Director of Wellbeing. As the Director of Wellbeing at SIG, Rachel supports companies to engage and connect their employees in meaningful ways so that the company can actually become an employer of choice. In February of 2015, an elite panel of health and wellness industry experts and the Wellness Council of America selected Rachel as the #1 health promotion professional in the country. That's like the entire United States, folks. Rachel is a licensed Thriving Workplace Culture Consultant, and she works as a catalyst. She connects, invites curiosity, and releases possibilities in people and in organizations. As a nationally recognized speaker, writer, and change agent in the health and wellness field, Rachel leads with enthusiasm, authenticity, and passion. Her mission is to foster relationships that are rooted in psychological safety, curiosity, and connection, so people can feel fully alive, be their best selves, do their best work, and draw out the best in others. My very good friend, Rachel Druckenmiller.
Thank you. Could you raise your hand if you didn't get a packet? Amy's going to walk around with different packets, so keep your hand up until you have a packet. You know, it's interesting, when I got asked to speak, the first thing I thought was, well, I'm not an accountant, so how credible am I to talk to these people? But, you know, I thought about it, I thought back to high school, and you have to take those exams about what career you're going to end up in. And the one that showed up at the top of the list for me at that time was accountant. So I feel like maybe sort of I can connect in that way. And the truth is that so much of what we're going to talk about today are universal human truths. Like, they're things that just apply to us as human beings. And I think at a time like this, it's so important for us to connect over the areas that we have in common instead of focusing so much on what divides us. And so my goal today is to inspire and to empower you and to get you to think a little bit differently about your life and about your work and about your well-being and about your relationships, and that you will feel a sense of confidence as you kind of leave here and tackle the next, you know, challenges that you have in your life. So I'm not sure if anyone else can relate to this, but I've always been wired as very, very type A, very driven, very ambitious, kind of, you know, wanting to succeed and win and achieve and get the best grades and get promoted and get recognition and all of that and leave a mark. But it caught up with me about a year ago. I had a dream last September that I was drowning. Very scary to have a dream that you're drowning. It's good when you wake up from those dreams, but it's really kind of terrifying when you're in the midst of it. And so I had this dream I was drowning, and then about a month later, I was noticing I had some trouble with my memory. And so I would be having conversations with people, and I couldn't quite pull the words that I wanted to say. And I'd be like, gosh, I don't know why I'm having trouble, like, not being able to remember these words. They're such simple words. So I went to my doctor, and I was chatting with him about this, and he asked me a series of questions, and then he said, maybe you're doing too much. Like, I don't think you understand that I'm like, you know, superwoman and I can do everything, so wrong answer. So then I left and I just kept doing what I was doing. And then about a month later, I got really sick. And I had swollen lymph nodes and sore throat. I lost my voice. I speak a lot for my work, and so at one point I had to write a script for somebody else to speak for me as I was sort of just miming things. I mean, not really all that helpful. And so I was sick for about 4 months. Until I decided to go to the doctor. And so I went to my doctor, and I was sitting across from him on Valentine's Day. I was supposed to be at dinner with my husband, and instead I'm sitting there like about ready to pass out because I felt so awful. And he's asking me a series of questions, and one of the things he said to me, he said, is this brought on by work, or did you bring this upon yourself? And I could have very easily blamed work and said, they're just pushing me, and you know, I gotta perform, and I gotta do what they expect me to do, and there's a certain level, and I've set the bar high. But through tears, I said to him, you know, I did this to myself. I did this to myself. Work didn't do this to me. I did this to myself, and I exhausted myself, and I got so disconnected. I was so sick, I missed my niece's second birthday party. I had to reschedule and cancel things for work, and I was so afraid of disappointing people, and it was really a challenge to go through that period of time. And so it turned out that I had an acute form of mono called Epstein-Barr virus, and it really wiped me out. I mean, I didn't start to feel better until about July of this past year, and the sickness ended up being a gift, because it gave me an opportunity to really reset and to recognize that the way I was living my life, even though I was being successful in the traditional sense of the word, it was not working for me. Having success in my career was not the only area in my life that I wanted to have success. I had fallen away, a bit in my relationship with my husband. He was kind of taking the brunt of all of this. I was missing out on family activities, missing out on parties with friends. I was just living this really kind of almost like depressed, 6 months. And it was really difficult. And I was like, you know what, this is not how I want things to be. I don't want my life to look like this going forward. And I realized this is that you cannot serve from an empty vessel. And so we think about being future ready. Yes, all the things we're learning about technology and all the changes in the industry, all that stuff is really important. It's important to know that stuff. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, none of that's going to matter. I thought it was so important that, gosh, if I was out, the world was going to fall apart. But people were fine. People were fine. Things got rescheduled. It was okay. Like, nothing major happened as a result of it. That was negative. People understand. They were forgiving. But we've got to start taking care of ourselves. And the other thing that I want to emphasize here is that we cannot remain as we are if we expect to become what it is that we're meant to be. Like, we can't do it. And so I had to recognize, that wasn't working. And so what do I want to do differently so that my life across all these areas can truly look different? So I'm going to ask you to be open. Some of the stuff we're going to talk about is, going to be probably different than maybe what you'd expect to hear. But I really want you to just be open to it and to be honest with yourself. It is so hard sometimes to be honest with ourselves, isn't it? Like in those moments where we just want to deny it. Like I was denying to my doctor, nope, you are so wrong. And then a month later, he was so right. I just kind of had to acknowledge that. And so I want us to be open that today. So we're going to look at B3, these 3 different areas. We want to focus on being curious, being connected, and being intentional. And all of you have a packet, and so I love to take notes. If you don't want to take any notes, you don't have to write anything in that packet. I'm not collecting it and grading it. But it's there for you to use, and so we're going to have different activities we're going to do, and so if you want to take notes, by all means, feel free to do that. So the first is to be curious. Some of you may be familiar with the tale of the blind man and the elephant, where they all come up to the elephant, right? And the first one touches the tail and says, oh, it's a rope. The next guy next to him says, oh, no, it's not a rope. This touches the legs. This is a trunk. This is a tree. And the next guy comes along and says, oh no, as he touches the trunk, he says, no, this is a snake, actually. It's not a tree. It's not a rope. It's a snake. And then somebody else comes along and touches the tusk, and he says, no, you know what? I found out exactly what it is. It's a spear. Somebody way up top touches the ear, says it's a fan, and then somebody's on the side, he says it's a wall. And so often what we do, right, is we take our perspective and we think that is the perspective. That is the only option. We only know part of anything, right? None of us knows all of everything. And so it's really important when it comes to curiosity that we recognize that we have limitations, that we have blind spots, that we don't know everything. But that if we want to be successful, that we have to be open to the fact that somebody else might have part of the solution and we don't have it all. So curiosity is about noticing without judging. It's about being, open to encouraging exploration. And when we take the mindset of curiosity, we can be so much more effective at problem solving and at connecting with other people. Because as soon as we think we have the answer, right, how shut down do we become? We know the thing, no one else knows. That's not a very pleasant person to be around, not a very effective person to be around. And so we want to focus on what can we do to actually be more effective. And it starts with us being aware. So when we run into something that's maybe confusing or frustrating or challenging, instead of making assumptions or going about the problem the way we always have, we want to ask questions. We want to be curious. I have the opportunity in my job to interview CEOs of clients of ours, and I get some of their stories, and then I write, bless you, and then I write open enrollment letters that go out to their employees. And so I get to talk to some really neat people. So for one particular company, this is a publicly traded company, And the HR team was kind of giving me the rundown on this guy, and they said, good luck, is basically what they said to me. So I was really excited to talk to him. So we get in this conversation, talking for about 20 minutes, and I come to find out that his father was raised in a Catholic orphanage and developed a really, really strong work ethic from a young age. And so he passed that down to his family, to his children. And so this man had lived in the Midwest, was really successful in business, was very connected to the community. He helped coach the Pee Wee football team, and they won the championship, and he felt really connected. And then he got a job opportunity that was in Maryland. And so he made the choice to uproot his family and move to Maryland. And so I was asking him, I said, if it were just right, like if things were just right for you, like what would it look like? And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, in a perfect world, it would be nice to have personal friendships in Maryland. This is a 65-year-old man who didn't have any friends. So he wasn't mean. Like, because I got curious, because they were making assumptions. He's just mean, right? He's just this mean old executive. Like, no, he's lonely. He's like crying out for help. He's lonely. He's desperate for connection. If you read headlines on like the Boston Globe and the Harvard Business Review, they're saying things like, you know what? Loneliness is a greater risk factor from a health standpoint to middle-aged men than obesity and smoking. Loneliness. And we're not talking about this, but so many people are struggling with this. And it's affecting their well-being, and it's affecting their performance, it's affecting their ability to be a decent human to talk to, because let's be honest, we all deal with people that were like, man, I wish they'd be a little nicer, a little easier to deal with. And it's because we have people that are walking around with so much hurt, and everyone in this room is dealing with something. Every single person is dealing with something that maybe you hope no one knows about, but that is like a deep struggle that affects how you behave with people and affects how you interact. And so it's so important that we take a mindset of curiosity, especially as we first start meeting people, to drop the assumptions and to get out of our head, right? Because don't we do that? We're like, oh, I know this type. I know this kind of person. I know how they are. And then we have like a whole story written. We haven't even had a conversation with them. And then we engage based on the story we told ourselves. So like for the most part, we're living in like this fantasy land. We make up all this stuff in our head that never actually happens, right? Don't we do this? Anybody else do this? We make up stories about things that aren't actually happening, and we believe that they have come to be. And then in most cases, they never even happen. And then we sit there and we spend all this time worrying about we said something wrong and somebody didn't get back to us in the right way, or the email was really short and we're like, oh geez, or they gave us a look in a meeting, and like, we don't get curious, right? Do we? We just make assumptions, like they're out to get me, or I did something wrong, or And so it's really important that we start to do this. We start to focus on that. So I'm going to give you guys a series of a couple curiosity questions that you can bring back to your personal life and to your business. The first one is the question that I asked the CEO. If it were just right, what would it look like? If things at your company were just right, if your culture was just right, if your leadership team's communication style was just right, if the service delivery to your clients was just right, what would it look like? This is a question of curiosity. It opens people up to explore and to say what's on their mind. So if it were just right, what would it look like in your own life? If your health were just right, what would it look like? If your relationship with your spouse were just right, what would it look like? With your kids? Like, we need to be asking ourselves this question, because this can tell us a lot. And it takes us away from making assumptions. A couple more questions. As you're facing any problem or any challenge, ask yourself these 3 questions. What's working? What could we do better? What could we do differently? So often we say, like, we have gripe sessions where people come in like, this is what's wrong, and this is what's not working, and this is what I don't like. It's sort of helpful to know that, but knowing what someone doesn't like doesn't really give you much information about what they might like. So it's way more effective to focus on what could we do differently? What could we do better? And then to start with what's right. It's so motivating. Gosh, what is working? What are we already doing well? What have we like mastered? What makes us different? And start with what's working. And then move on to these other 2 areas. What can we do better, and what could we do differently? The next 3 questions we're going to look at as we close out this section, you can bring back to your personal life. And you know, you can do this to your relationships. Again, right? Like, think about your, maybe a significant other. What's working? So often we're like nag central, right? Like, don't do that. Like, most people have enough. They don't want somebody else bugging them about stuff they're not doing right. Focus on like, what is working? What could we do better? What could we do differently? So the next 3 questions. So often, tell me if you've had this experience. You're sitting in your desk or in your office or whatever, and someone just barges in or comes up to you and they just start having a conversation. Does this happen to anybody? Okay, yeah. They're not like, hey, is now a good time? Does anyone ever have that experience? Someone's like, hey, is now? Some people are considerate, right? Isn't that nice? And sometimes you can say like, no, now's not a good time. Isn't that a relief when you have an option? Yes, you want to give them your full attention. And if they just barge in and you're having a moment and now is not a good time, they didn't bother to ask you, they're not going to get the best version of you, right? But very rarely do we do this. So I would encourage you at work to start doing this. Before you just approach someone and assume that you can invade their space and their mind, is now a good time? And if now's not a good time, when's a good time? Give them the option. People love, don't we? Adults love control, don't we? So give that person control. Like, let go of that. The next question, and this is it's actually more of like a prompt. So as we're having a conversation, I'm going to pick on you because you're right here. So often when we have these conversations with people, right, someone tells us stuff, and then we're ready with our response or our defense, aren't we? Like, I'm already formulating what I'm going to say in my head. You're not done yet. You're not going to be here for 30 seconds, but I already know how I'm going to respond to you. And so we do this, right? We do this, okay, because I'm seeing heads nodding. Yeah, we do that. So imagine what would happen in the interaction if instead of doing that, they're talking to you. So we're having a conversation, and you share something with me, and then I say, okay, so let me see if I got that. And then I repeat back to you what I heard you say. How would that be for you? Like, awesome, right? To actually feel heard and listened to? What's that? Oh, okay. Well, we're going to postpone that. Thank you. Tech team. Okay. Yeah, so we want to focus on, okay, so then let me see if I got that. And then I repeat it back. This is called mirroring. My husband and I do this training to couples. Actually, we go around and we do couples communications training. Really, really useful. Do this with your spouse. You will surprise them. Wow. They're like, I'm being listened to. This is incredible. So let me see if I got that. And then repeat it back, what you heard them say. Really, really powerful. Almost no one, I would venture to guess no one, is doing that for that person besides you. And the last thing to ask is there more about that? So they're sharing something with you, and then they get through the end, you mirror back, and you say, is there more about that? And these 3 questions are in your packet. Is there more about that? Because what do we typically say? When someone's talking to us and we want to be done with it, what do we say? Yeah, like, you done yet? Is that all? Can I go? Right? Like we're in prison? Like, no. Is there more about that? Oh my gosh. Just like watch the reactions of people as you ask them these questions. Like, this is a really great way to solidify relationships. So as a reflection, one of the things that you can do, and this is a really great kind of like take-home packet, to think of something right now you're worried about, or that's been a challenge for you that involves another person. This prompt is in your packet. What's a question you could ask them to get some clarification? Because so often, right, we go into these interactions, we have a frustration with someone, something doesn't make sense, we're confused, and we go into fantasy land and we tell the story about what happened, not actually happening, made up. And so it's really important in those situations to go to that person and ask them a clarifying question. Usually when we're anxious, it's because we're lacking information. And so that's one of the most important things that we can do. So that's curiosity. The second thing is about connection. Be connected with yourself and be connected with other people. We are hardwired for connection as human beings. And we are more digitally connected than we've ever been, but a lot of people are lonely. There's a lot of people that feel intimately disconnected. And so what are we doing to help kind of focus on this and bring more of this about? Be more connected to yourself. Listen to your body. It'll whisper at you. It'll go louder. It'll go a little louder. It'll go a little louder. And then it's going to be like, oh, mono, you're done. Like, that's what happens. Sometimes it's worse. Sometimes it's like a heart attack and there's no second chance. Sometimes it's cancer. Like, you guys, our body is a machine. And if we overwork it and don't give it a break, it's going to shut down eventually. My expertise is in health and wellness. Are you kidding me? Like, I was so not remotely living all the things I was talking about. The second day after I got sick, I had to cancel a presentation about how to boost your immune system naturally because I was so sick. And the email to the client was so ironic that I was like, I can't believe this is the presentation I have to cancel. But I need to learn some things before I can come back and talk about this, apparently, because I am missing something. But again, really important, listen to the body. It's whispering. Maybe it's an ache or a pain, or maybe it's migraines, or maybe it's like some heartburn, or maybe it's like our energy's off, or we're fatigued. The body is so smart. It's trying to keep you alive all day, and we just get in the way all the time. We get in the way. And then we get mad at it when it doesn't do what we want it to. It's a machine. It has limitations. You can't do it all. Not right now. Maybe you can do it all, but you can't do it all at the same time. Have the mindset of an athlete. Anybody here, okay, I know we're in Maryland. I'm a Ravens fan. Does anyone here know anyone who's like a Patriots fan? Yes. Okay. Anybody? So the quarterback is Tom Brady. Anybody know anything about Tom Brady in terms of like his routines? What's that? He sure does. He's a wealthy guy. He's a smart guy, right? He figured out that like what he puts in his body makes a big difference. Most athletes are completely clueless that what they eat has any impact on their performance. It does. He is like almost a little militant about what he eats, but hey, to play at that level at that age, he's doing something right, and whether you like him or not. And there's a lot of like, he's not a lot of people's favorite person, but he's good at football. So have the mindset of an athlete. Think like an athlete. Train like an athlete. You're a corporate athlete, right? Everybody here is a corporate athlete. Eat like an athlete and rest like an athlete. They recognize that their body is the vehicle that allows them to do their work. Well, guess what? Your body is the vehicle that allows you to do your work. A lot of it might be in your head, but I can promise you that if you're not feeling well, if you have low energy, you're not taking care of yourself, you are not performing at your highest level. You are absolutely not. And your brain requires a lot of energy from food and from movement and from rest. That if you are not giving your body what it needs, it will not perform at its highest level for you. And you will not be able to do the best work you can do, the most creative, the most innovative work that you could possibly do. So this idea of doing this, what I'd like you to do, there's actually little sticky notes on your table. So I'm going to collect these at the end. But I'd like you to think about, are there any apps that you use, any books that you've read, any podcasts that you listen to that have really helped you from a mindset perspective, this thinking kind of thing in terms of like, doing well in your job or in your life? Any books that you've read that have really been transformational for you? If there's like an app that you use that really helps you. So I just want you to, if anything comes to mind throughout the rest of the time, if you'll use these sticky pads to jot those down, and then when we're finished, if you guys wouldn't mind coming up and sticking them to this little board, and then we'll make sure that that information gets sent out to everybody afterwards. So you kind of have a list of resources to go off of, and you can see, based on the people in this room, like, what are the things that they're using? What are your peers using in order to kind of support their mind and body? So you can do that. If you have something that comes to you 20 minutes from now, you can pick up one of those things. That's what they're there for, okay? So we want to think about movement. I'm going to think about 3 different things when it comes to being connected to the body. Moving, fueling, and resting. So movement. If you want to get up and walk around your table, you're welcome to do that. Everybody here, get up if you're not writing. Get up and just take a walk around your table. I mean, we sit all day, right? We sit all day. I'm going to keep moving while you guys are walking. I'm going to tell you about a study that was done. And they took a group of volunteers, and when you're done walking, you can sit down. They took a group of volunteers and they put them into 2 different groups. In one group, they said, you're going to walk for exercise. The other 50%, and if you want to stand up, by the way, and hang in the back of the room, that's fine. Stand up the rest of the time if you want to. They put one group and they said, this is the exercise group, and then the other group, they said, just go for a walk and take in the surroundings. And then what they did is they gave the participants a plastic bag and they said, thank you for participating, and they had a bunch of M&Ms. People could take however many M&Ms they wanted. Which of the groups you think took more M&Ms? Raise your hand if you think it's the exercisers. Raise your hand if you think it's the nature walkers. The people who were the nature walkers took half as many M&Ms. Why do you think that might be? They got a natural endorphin. They enjoyed it. How often do we exercise because it's fun? Some people do. A lot of people don't. It's like, I gotta go to the gym, I gotta work out. It's like a chore. Okay, it feels like a chore. So since you just did work, you get a prize, right? Because we learn that when we're kids, right? You did work, you get a prize. The prize is lots of M&Ms. And so this is what happened. So we gotta recognize, like, we're not conscious of this. They had no idea that that was being studied, but that's what was happening. So we gotta recognize, like, how can we move in ways we enjoy? I talked to a gentleman over lunch, and I was asking him about what he likes to do outside of work, and he told me that his wife got him into yoga. He was very resistant. He didn't want to do it for a really long time, but he's like, it really helps me kind of check out, and it really helps me just calm down and focus, and I never want to tell her she's right, but I do yoga 3 days a week now. So he found out, like, that's what works for him. So to really be honest with yourself, like, what do you enjoy? What forms of movement do you enjoy, and to pursue that? This fueling piece is also really important. I'm a health coach, and I spend a lot of time focusing on this aspect of how we fuel ourselves. And if you can remember nothing else about nutrition, eat food not too much, mostly plants. People around the world who live the longest, this is what they do. We make it so stinking complicated. It's really not. We just don't want to do it. We got to be honest, right? We just don't want to do the things we know to do. We actually all know what to do. We just don't do it because we don't want to. So we got to be, really thinking it to ourselves. Has anyone seen one of these in real life? Like, there's an Oreo tree. Anyone like to see one of these in real life? But truly, I mean, if it's not growing on a tree or swimming in the water or like flying in the air or running around in a field, like, it's not going to be good fuel for you. It's just not. You want to perform at a high level, we got to focus on this. This is a very simple way of thinking about nutrition, how to organize your plate. Half of it's vegetables, a quarter is protein, a quarter starch. Done. Doesn't mean that you like never have a piece of pizza or never have like a burger. No, this is like not about perfection. This is just about, generally speaking, if we want to eat for energy, people that eat for energy eat like this. What's that? Get the vegetarian pizza. Get more veggies on it. Like if you can add color to your plate, add color. Again, we complicate it, so try to add in more of this stuff for fuel. Raise your hand if you go into a slight panic mode when you see this. Slight moment of panic, right? And what do you do immediately? Gotta find a charger, gotta find a charger, gotta find a charger, right? We do this, don't we? But interestingly, we are so focused on recharging our phones and very much not focused on recharging our bodies. What is that about? Like, that's messed up. Who would go to bed and not charge your phone? Yeah, okay, there's one brave soul. Are you hoping something will happen if it doesn't work the next day? There you go. Oh, your kids take it. Okay, blame it on your kids. Okay, that's fine. But really, like, we've got to start thinking about this. Like, we are so focused on recharging this thing, and then we compromise our own sleep for it. Sleep is so crucial. It used to be a luxury, considered a luxury, or like really cool that you could brag that you only need 4 hours of sleep. Not smart. These are a couple books that focus on that. Ariana Huffington is really leading the charge on this, the Huffington Post. There's a guy named Dr. Michael Bruce, who's known as the sleep doctor. If you have trouble with sleeping, sleepdoctor.com. Lots of really great stuff. He's on tons of podcasts, written a bunch of books. But these are a couple resources that can really help you with that. So I want you to think about, what's one step that you'll take to take care of your machine? Like, what are you going to do differently to take care of your body? I mean, I'm the prime example of like what happens when you don't. And it's not fun. It's very isolating. And I know there's some of you sitting there that probably think, well, you know what? I just get lucky. Maybe you have. But I'm going to guess some area of your life has been compromised that you may not want to admit, but you just can't be all things to all people, and something's got to give. Especially, we're really driven in our career. It's like, I had to be honest with myself and think about it. You know what? If this goes away, what really matters to me? Like my husband and my family and my friendships, I had so neglected my friendships, even my coworker relationships at the expense of getting ahead. And a lot of us do that because we think that's what success is. That's what's going to make us happy. No, it's not, because I was there and I was miserable. I had a friend even reach out to me, send me a text message, a very brave friend that said, warning, unsolicited observation coming. That's when you want to turn your phone off. But I read it, and she was basically saying this to me, like, you seem to run around and say all these things, but you yourself rarely seem content and fulfilled. And I wrote her back, I was like, you're right. So it was a big reality check for me. This was just in March. So I'm so grateful that it happened. I'm kind of bummed that it got to that point, but I'm grateful that it happened. So to really think about what is one step you'll take to, focus on recharging the machine and fueling the machine and moving the machine. Connection to other people. This is so crucial. This is at the core of who we are as humans, is to connect with other people. But most of us are doing a second job that no one's paying us for. We kind of go around and we manage our impressions of other people, and we hide our insecurities and our imperfections, maybe our incompetence. And especially the more we achieve, the higher we move up, the more responsibility we get, the more praise and recognition we get. After I got that recognition, it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. It was one of the worst things that ever happened to me. Because I put this pressure on myself to perform and I gotta be this person. Everyone expects me to be this good all the time. What they don't know is that I don't really know what I'm doing. Do you ever feel that way? That they think I know, I don't really know. I'm hiding it really good. So that's what was happening. And so we hide ourselves. And we don't let any vulnerability come out. And we put on this tough facade because we don't want anyone to see through us, because we want everyone to think we're so tough and we're so smart and we know it all. And I did that. Not a really good way to win friends. And I was doing that, and it was affecting me in a really negative way. And a lot of us are doing this. And this is one of the single biggest resource drains that we're not conscious of, that we are spending so much time hiding who we are because we're afraid of what would happen if people truly found out what was underneath of us. We're afraid that if people saw who we truly were, that we wouldn't be worthy of acceptance and connection and love. And as fluffy as that sounds, it is true at the core of all of us that is what we want. That is what makes us come alive. That's why we're human. These are human things that we deny. We don't pay attention to them. As part of my reset this year, I decided to kind of remedy some of the relationships I had with my coworkers. And so I decided, I got to work one day and I was like, all right, who am I supposed to, talk to first? And so this one person comes to mind, and I just had a tiff with her the week before, and I was like, not her. I'll talk to anybody else, I just don't want to talk to her. And so I was like, I got to go do it. So I went and sat in her office, and I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being prideful, and for being quick to speak and slow to listen, and for being challenging to work with, and for being disagreeable, and for being inaccessible. I was doing it because I was afraid that you might find out that I didn't really know what I was doing, and that I wasn't as smart as everyone was saying that I was. And I'm sorry. And I just kind of waited to see what she was going to say. And what shocked me the most, this is a director level position who works on our operations team. She's been in our company for about 15 years. And she was brave enough to remove her mask too. And she said, Rachel, I didn't go to college. I sit here every day just waiting, counting down 10 years to retirement, hoping no one figures out that I don't really know what I'm doing either. And she's like, the more I talk to people, the more I realize we're all afraid of the same thing, that someone's going to find us out and find out the thing that we're incompetent. What if we just accepted we're all afraid of that? How much more freeing would that be, instead of all of us running around pretending and covering up and hiding? And this prevents us from authentically connecting with people, because we're always putting on a charade to make sure that we can impress everyone or say the right thing or do the right thing. It's draining, it's exhausting to do this, but we all do it. We fear that we're not enough. We're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not accomplished enough, we're not talented enough, we're not a good enough parent, we're not a good enough spouse, we're not making enough money, we're not advancing quickly enough. We're all afraid we're not enough in some way. And then we act out. Google did a project called Project Aristotle. They did a study, looked at 180 high-performing teams. And they were curious, what do these teams have in common? What makes them different? Why are they so high-performing? Any guesses as to what they found out? What's that? Having fun together. That would be part of this. But it was psychological safety. Psychological safety is a sense of confidence that if I put myself out there, I'm not going to be embarrassed, rejected, or shamed. That's what psychological safety is. A lot of people do not feel psychologically safe at work, and this is why innovation gets stunted, this is why collaboration doesn't happen effectively, and this is why people are not able to show up as their most creative selves because they don't feel psychologically safe. They are hiding, they're wearing a mask, and we're protecting ourselves. And so we don't put out there what we really think might be helpful. And this is really holding us back. This is really holding us back. Connection fosters trust. This is why this is important, because connection fosters trust, and trust is necessary if we want to make relationships work, if we want to be collaborative, if we want to be effective, we want to be innovative, all these things that we need to be future ready. Like, if we are not truly making an attempt to connect with other people and create an environment where it's okay to make mistakes. Certain mistakes people make, and like, yeah, they got to be let go. Like, there's a reality to business. But in most cases, like, what if we were a little gentler with people if they made a mistake and asked them what they learned from it, or what they could do differently next time? People live in such fear that they hide things from people. You don't want people hiding stuff from you, like, do you? Really? That's not going to help you grow if people are hiding things or afraid to tell you what they really think. There's a fantastic book, if you're a reader, a fantastic book called In Everyone Culture that talks about this. There's organizations called deliberately developmental organizations, and they focus on creating radical transparency. The book is In Everyone Culture, like A-N, In Everyone Culture, by Bob Keegan and Lisa Leahy out of Harvard. Speaking of Harvard, they've done a study. They've studied the same population, about 740 men, for the past 80 years. It's called the Harvard Adult Development Study. And so they were curious. They looked at these men and they said, what is it that determines health and happiness in the long run? They looked at all these different metrics. They've sent them through all like different lab work and questionnaires. And so, we talk about things like, cholesterol really matters, or blood pressure really is important, or, our waist circumference, and all these things that we say are the most important when it comes to health and happiness. And what they found, they made a comparison between people that were age 50 and then they looked at them again at age 80. The people who were healthiest and happiest at age 80, what they had in common at age 50 was the quality of their relationships. It wasn't their cholesterol, it wasn't their blood pressure. Not that those things don't matter, they do. But the people that were the most well-adjusted, that were the healthiest and happiest, were the ones who leaned into relationships. And when these men started the study, they thought that the secret to success and happiness was wealth and fame and achievement and getting ahead. And the people that at age 80 had the best lives were the ones that said, no, I leaned into relationships with my coworkers and my family and my friends. Relationships are what matter more than anything else. And because when they're not working, it throws off every other aspect of your life, doesn't it? When your core relationships are off, it affects everything. And so what are we doing? Work is important, but people are more important. People are more important. The people that love you are more important than all of this. So a couple questions to ask yourself. I think this would be really important to do as a reflection, to think about who's in your tribe. This is also in your packet. Who's one person at work you feel safe with to be yourself? Who is one person outside of work that you feel safe with to be yourself? And we don't want to talk about these third people, but we need them. Who are the truth tellers? Who are the people in your life that send you the unsolicited warning observation text message and tell you what you don't want to hear, but need to hear? Who are those people? We need these kind of people in our lives. We need the people we have fun with. That is so important, right? Life is meant to be enjoyed, and we're supposed to laugh and, experience it and feel fully alive. But we also need people that we can just talk about the tough stuff with. My husband's in a small group of about 7 men that get together once a month, and they range in age from 30 to 60, and they talk about their marriages, and they talk about work, and they talk about kids, and they talk about infertility, and they talk about adoption, they talk about all this stuff. And they cry together, and they drink beers together, and they sit around a campfire and talk about stuff, and they probably do other stupid stuff that he doesn't tell me, but but they have community. We are meant to live in community. I've been like pretty introverted most of my life. But like we are still meant, I don't care how shy you are, you need people. You might just need one person, but you need somebody else besides yourself to spend some time with who can speak truth into you. Because that's where growth happens, right? When we have people that can be honest with us, that we can be safe with. We can say, I'm scared, I don't know, I feel like a total fraud. The people that can just encourage us and listen to us. We need these people. All of us need these people. So I'd encourage you to kind of reflect on that. And the last thing we want to do is to be intentional, right? We want to be curious, we want to notice without judging, we want to be connected, and we got to be intentional. Approach life with some intentionality. There was a study done by Gallup of about 10,000 people. Check out this question they asked them. What percentage of you had a positive interaction yesterday? So this is in a survey. They asked people one of these questions, right? What percentage of people do you think, shout out some numbers, 0 to 100, what percentage of people you think said, yes, I had a positive interaction yesterday? 60, 45, 8, 50, 25, 90. We're like very optimistic about humans, and then we're like, no, I watch the news, I know people aren't so nice, right? Like, 16% of people had positive interactions the day before. Like, it starts with each of us. We can't wait around for other people to like start some program at work where you like got to be nice to people. Like, start being nice to people. Start paying attention to people. Start listening, authentically, really listening to people and creating space for people. I tell you, when I was at like that verge of my, like that burnout that I went through, I'd be in the hallway walking by, I'd just walk by, like they would know I was busy and that I couldn't be bothered. You ever had that experience? Where like, I'm busy, I don't have time for small talk. And then I realized that really isolated me. And so now I've welcomed that back into my life. If someone stops me and wants to have a conversation, maybe it's 2 or 3 minutes, but it's another human. That human is more important than what's on your phone. Please, right? I mean, our phone, we are really tied to those things, right? But if you were walking by the other human, the human that is face-to-face with you is more important than the human that's in that phone. Put it down. When you walk by people, acknowledge them. One of my coworkers started doing this really powerful thing, starting a drive called Blankets for Baltimore, where they collect blankets and they make care packages to donate to the homeless in Baltimore. And the really cool thing about this is that I posted about this on Facebook, and yesterday I get a comment on my post that says, hey, we're looking to do some stories about organizations that are doing good in the community. I'm Chanel from ABC2 News. We'd love to do an interview with your company tomorrow. This was yesterday afternoon. So we had her come in today. We got the person who organized it all, and I was kind of listening in on the interview today, and Jess is the woman who organized it. And one of the things she said, you know what, the other day we went into the city and we were giving out these blankets, and there was one couple that was arguing with each other. We're kind of nervous to go up to them because we weren't sure, what it was about. And they were arguing because they were coming, and how many people walk by and don't even make eye contact with them? That don't even acknowledge their humanity. Like, everyone wants to feel like they matter. Everyone wants to feel like they're seen. Everyone wants to feel like they're known. Like, we all want to feel this stuff. We don't want to talk about it, right? But everyone wants to feel that way. And it was so powerful to hear her share this experience that they said, you're the first person that even looked at us today. We got to focus on being kinder to people. Everyone is craving this. People are craving this kind of connection. We don't choose the people we work with, right? Anybody else love The Office? I love them. We don't choose the people we work with. We got to figure out how to work with them. And interestingly, this was a study done over a period of 4 years by one of the leading third-party exit interview companies in the country that included thousands of employees. And they asked them this question: what percentage of managers believe employees leave for money? If you think it's A, raise your hand. You got to commit to something, by the way. You're going to commit to one of these 4. Okay. I think it's A. If you think it's B, raise your hand. If you think it's C, raise your hand. If you think it's D, raise your hand. I'm saying C and D are probably the most, okay? Because we think this, right? Like, I pay them. That's their thank you. They don't need thank you from me, right? That's what they get. They get a paycheck for working here. 89% What percentage of employees said that they leave because of money? That that's the primary reason. What percentage, if you had to guess? 20. 15. Since you're so close. 88% leave for reasons other than money. Money talks, yes it does. It is one of the reasons people want to work at your firm. It is not the only reason. It is not the only reason. One of the best books on this topic, if you want to do some team building at your company, there's a book called How Full Is Your Bucket? From Gallup, Tom Rath, and Don Clifton. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the number one reason people leave their jobs is because they do not feel appreciated. This is about intentionality. It does not take much to say thank you. Like, quick, time me. Thank you. Like, we're not doing it, though. Right? We're not doing it. We're stopping to ask how someone's weekend was and actually paying attention and not like being off here while they're having a conversation with us. Like, it's really about being intentional with people and focusing on this. Ask yourself this question on a daily basis. How can I be a contribution today? Not even necessarily how can I make a difference. How can I be a contribution? How can me being at this company, how can me being in this relationship, how can I be a contribution? How can I add to it? This is Scotty. Scotty's a homeless Vietnam veteran who lives in Rehoboth Beach, Maryland. And our CEO, Richard, has befriended him. His family goes and spends time in Rehoboth. And so they've become kind of an odd couple when it comes to friends. And Scotty just hangs out in the chair. Most people walk by him. They don't look at him. They don't make eye contact. He's kind of like the guy in the corner people don't really know what to do with. And so Richard was watching a news story a couple of years ago about a millionaire in Pittsburgh who was going into stores around the holidays and giving people $100 bills and just making their day. I mean, really powerful stuff. So Richard watched this segment, and he decided to give Scotty a $100 bill. So he goes up to him and he explains the story, and he's giving him the money, and Scotty just is beside himself, just breaks down in tears. And the first thing he says is he's going to take the money and take a couple of his buddies to go get a lobster dinner. He has nothing materialistically, and the first thing he wants to do with what little he gets is to give it away. Like, we got to be honest with ourselves at how many of us would do that. Be like, I got some shoes I can buy, I got a place I want to go, could use that toward, going out to dinner by myself, not taking any friends. And so this was really powerful for Richard, and he said, you know what? He shared the story with us at our final all-hands meeting of the year. He said, it was such a powerful experience for me. I want all of you to have the opportunity to experience what I experienced that day. And he took out an envelope, just come from the bank, gave everybody a handwritten thank you note, and two $100 bills. Said you can use one to give away, you can keep the other for yourself, or you can give that away too. And the story started coming in, and it was incredible. There's one woman who's the clerk at Wawa, knows her bagel order, like she walks in, she's got the bagel ready, right? And then another woman, it was her child's daycare provider, and another woman went to the airport, and her family has a connection to the military, so she waited till she found a serviceman who had just come back from overseas. He's a paraplegic. And she explained what had happened and gave him the money. It's the first thing he talked about when he got home to see his family. And I decided, it was Christmas Eve, and I was at church, and I had put on my heart to share with one of the families that's one of the leadership, a leadership position in my church. And so after the service, I went up to them. They were packing up their car. They have 3 kids. They're basically on like 2 teacher salaries. And I told them the story, and I handed them the money. And they tear up, and they said, we just took our car to the shop, and we didn't know how we were going to pay for it. And so I texted Richard, and I told him, I was like, oh my gosh, you never believe what happened. And so I texted him, I told him, and then he texted me back, and he goes, give him another 100. So the next week I show up, and I'm back there, I'm like, I'm pulling him aside again, and I'm like, this is a little weird, but my boss, he wanted me to give you another $100. And they look at me, they're like, who do you work for? So powerful. This is about being intentional. Are you creating experiences at your firm, or is your firm creating experiences for your employees to have a feeling like that? Like, my company let me feel that. You think people leave companies that make them feel that way? Anybody here want to retain some people? Recruit some people? engage some people. Here's a way to do it. Give people an opportunity to be a contribution. That's how you do it. Mm-hmm. That's so fantastic. It wasn't just for you. It wasn't just this action of like, oh, let me give this money to this person. It's like, no, I'm making a connection. That's so powerful. Remembering people's names, I think sometimes we overlook that. We're like, oh, I'll just ask them again. Give yourself some device if you have to make them remember. But like, people are always so shocked, aren't they? You remember their name? You met them one time? Especially in a setting like that. Really powerful. Pay attention to people. Pay attention to what their name is, right? Like, listen to them. Acknowledge their humanity. Everybody wants this. What is one thing you want more of in your organization, and what specifically are you, without some directive, what are you going to do to make it happen? You want more fun, you want more community, you want more generosity. I hear people say, we have such an entitled workforce. The opposite of entitlement is generosity and gratitude. So focus on what is that we can do to create an atmosphere of generosity. What can you do to be more thankful? What can you do to acknowledge some people in your community, in your workplace that are making a difference or making a contribution to you? Like, we really have got to start being aware, right? That curiosity piece, being aware of other people and the positive impact they're having on our lives, and we've got to acknowledge it. We recognize it and then we acknowledge it. One of the most powerful books I've read. Has anyone else read this book? Bob Chapman, Everybody Matters. It's a fantastic book. I'm going to close with just kind of these words that he had to say. Everyone wants to do better. Trust them. Leaders are everywhere. Find them. People achieve good things, big and small, every day. Celebrate them. Some people wish things were different. Listen to them. Everybody matters. Show them. Show them. Everybody that you work with matters. Everybody that you interact with matters. The clerk at the grocery store matters. Right? Like the person working at the gas station matters. Like, everybody matters. When we start to recognize our shared humanity, we can connect. And you know what? You're going to feel better as a result. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. So with that, I'll take questions. I have my contact information up here, but anyone have any questions or comments? Thank you. Are we hiring? We are hiring a junior financial analyst. Yes, we are hiring. And I'm happy my contact information is also in the front of your packet. So if you look at the very front of your packet, my email address and my phone number. And if you guys have cards that you want to put up here, those sticky notes, if there's any apps that you use that help you with performance or being a better human, any podcasts that you listen to that you think other people should know about, any books that you're reading or have read, or anything else that doesn't fit in any of those categories, you can come on up and put those up. We'll consolidate these. So thank you guys so much for your attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.